All right, I think we can get started here, everyone. So, welcome. My name's Joseph Mosca. I'm from Foresight, Canada, and I'll be leading this webinar on the Magna International Facilities Emission Challenge. Just before we get started, I want to make an acknowledgement on the lands that you might be joining us from. I myself am calling from Calgary, Alberta, which is the ancestral home and traditional territory of the Treaty 7 and District 5 and 6 Métis people. Just very briefly on today's agenda, which is listed in Eastern Time, we'll have a little bit of some opening remarks. We'll go into a bit about the partners that are involved in this, so Foresight Canada and also Magna International. A little bit about the challenge overview, so a bit of background for what is the motivation that Magna has for seeking out solutions. Then we'll go into a little bit more of the detail in the eligibility and evaluation criteria. And finally, we'll talk about some of the actual review process and some tips for getting your applications in. And we'll reserve a little bit of time at the end for some questions and answers. And I encourage folks on the call to use the Q&A feature of the webinar. So if you have questions, please enter them into the chat and we'll have those read out and hopefully get an answer to you during that portion right there. So today's speakers is myself, Joseph Mosca. I'm a senior program manager at Foresight Canada. And we also, on today's call, will have Craig Carothers. He's the energy champion representing Magna International. So firstly, Foresight, our purpose is to help the world do more with less sustainably. We're Canada's largest innovation accelerator and adoption um, entity, and we have a mandate to increase the amount of clean technology within Canada over the next 3 years. As I mentioned, we want to connect the world's best clean technologies and connect that to where it needs to be the most. So in this case, we do work with industry to help connect innovators, researchers, and other entities that are developing amazing clean tech solutions and to work them to get them into where they're most needed. So by working in this model, we're able to connect and scope out and find solutions that are necessary for the challenges that we have in reducing emissions and also growing economy through clean technology development. And I think we're still waiting for um, my counterpart to join. So I'm just going to briefly introduce a little bit of background for Magna International, and hopefully Craig can eventually log on. I think he's just having some difficulty accessing the webinar. But Magna International is one of the world's largest auto suppliers, um, and they're committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. So they have a couple of different pathways that they're looking to action on this, such as reducing their Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 42% and their Scope 3 emissions by 25% by 2030. They have a number of different ways that they're looking at achieving this, such as driving decarbonization through energy optimization initiatives, transitioning to 100% renewable electricity by 2030. As well, and on the main focus of this is to help integrate solutions into their manufacturing operations. One of the amazing assets of Magna is that they collaborate with over 10,000 suppliers, customers, and startups to promote sustainability across their entire automotive supply chain. And that feeds in directly to a little bit of the background and the reasoning for today's challenge here. So Magna International is seeking innovative and reliable solutions to reduce their Scope 1 facility emissions. Setting the stage for this, a significant portion of their Scope 1 emissions comes from um, the makeup air units required to compensate for ventilation losses in manufacturing facilities. So the types of solutions that Magna would be seeking is any ways to reduce these facility Scope 1 emissions. And that could look like more efficient energy recovery systems, alternate fuels, efficient ventilation, heat pumps, or any other solution. Um, the important thing, though, is that any proposed solution from innovators has to have a great business case and have minimal disruptions into integrating it into Magna's facilities, and also be a reliable solution that requires minimal maintenance in the long term. So now that we've set the stage a little bit about why this challenge is being run right now, I want to talk and mention a little bit about what are the benefits and why should innovators consider applying to this. Well, firstly, the finalists from this challenge will have a chance to pitch their solutions to Magna's team. In this process right there, you'll get exposure and feedback and a little bit more of direct contact with a large entity such as Magna that has a global reach and experience and network. Out of those finalists, the winning solution will then have that possibility to potentially pilot that solution at one of Magna's facilities in Ontario. And in the long-term successful case from this, that pilot could eventually lead to scaling opportunities across Magna's global network. Um, so it's really his chance of exposure and building that collaborative network to gain an entrance into a large sector with global reach. I briefly alluded to some of the types of solutions that were being sought after, but just more to reiterate, successful solutions to this application, they'll be effective in reducing Scope 1 emissions from facility heating systems. I also mentioned the importance of having a good business case. And so this includes showing how there will be cost efficiency or return on investment within a reasonable timeline. And this is up to all innovators as they propose their solutions to say how they will action on this. I mentioned that the solutions should be ones that integrate well with a um, minimal disruption to business as usual for Magna's operations. Additionally, if there are any instances of extra year-round benefits, such as cooling capabilities that might be offered by solutions in summer months or other co-benefits, those are also highly encouraged. Something to consider is the scalability factor. Is the approach and design of the solution scalable across other facilities without um, significant changes or design changes? And lastly, it should also have a minimal maintenance and have long-term solutions, um, a long-term reliability as a solution. So some of the key dates here that we have. So the challenge has been launched already since February 12th. And we have until March 26th. That is the final date to submit solutions. After which we'll have an evaluation period that'll last until the end of April, to which shortly after the finalists will be notified, and then there we will hold a pitch presentation that is scheduled to be at the end of May, and to which shortly after there will be an announcement of our final winner in the first week of June. A little bit more into detail on some of the eligibility. So we're really looking for solutions to be at a technology readiness level 7 or higher, so ready to be piloted. This challenge is open to both Canadian as well as international applicants. Um, at the time of when it comes to piloting, all applicants should have the ability to work in Canada. However, there could be other instances that if an international um, applicant is not ready to work at that time, but they're eligible, say, in another territory that Magna operates, such as in Europe, there could be potential to have a direction to another one of Magna's facilities, such as in Graz, Austria. But our focus right here is looking right now for piloting for a um, yeah, deployment in Ontario. And a little bit of the evaluation. Oh, I see Craig has managed to go. Craig, would you like to um, say a couple words? We've already introduced Magna and a bit on the background, but I could go back to a couple slides if you'd like to say a couple words.
Oh, you keep going, Joseph, and I'll answer any questions at the end.
Sure, sounds good. So our evaluation criteria, a little bit of reiteration here of some of the important aspects. So principally, first and foremost, we have to have a cost-effective solution. So this is going to be demonstrated by a business case, a high-level business case that can show tell a compelling story and narrative of how there will be a return on investment on this type of uh, integration and application of technology. There should be an emission reduction impact, so demonstrating how the solution can reduce scope 1 facility emissions. Reliability is very important, that the proven solution requires minimal maintenance. Scalability, as we mentioned, that Magna has operations globally, and they're very interested in solutions that can be applied on not just one facility, but there is a chance to apply to promote those not only across their network within Canada, but also internationally. And we're really looking for unique and innovative solutions. So there's also an emphasis on that and for the yeah creativity and innovation that is available and out there. So again, reviewing how the application review process is happening. Firstly, when all applications have been sent in, some eligibility screening will be done by Foresight Canada's team to ensure completeness and fit with the challenge. Then those applications will go on to a committee review done by Magna's team to score and evaluate. And from the wider list of applicants, it will be narrowed down to a select few finalists who will have the opportunity to pitch and present their solutions in more detail to the Magna team. And based on that, we will have a winner that is selected at the end. So some application tips to go and have a solid application. So first and foremost, it's good to make sure that you fulfill the eligibility requirements. These are listed in detail on Foresight's challenge website where the challenge is hosted. And that's also where you will find links to the application itself. And you'll also be able to download the application program guide that goes into a little bit more detail on the challenge itself. We'd encourage you to not wait until the final deadline to submit your application. I think this is a challenging one, like myself included. I'm someone who leaves stuff to the last minute, but we'd really encourage you to make sure that you get your application in early because once the deadline has passed, the application portal will close and you will not be able to submit an application after which. And we'd encourage you to, provide evidence and where 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 available to support any descriptions that you've indicated in your application. Um, Really emphasize that you have a clear story to tell on how this solution will promote the reduction in scope one facility emissions and how this business case can be perceived, how it is an innovative approach, reliable and scalable, complete that whole narrative. And lastly, it will be good to explain any work that's been done to date. So anything to point out to, anything to instill confidence that this is a great technology that should be considered seriously by the team and is worth hearing more about to get into the pitch session. So I'm going to take a moment to pause here. We have any questions? There's the Q&A section. I see that we have some details right here, and I'll just read those out. So we have one question. How can we receive the Magna current process details or current equipment or technology they use? Is this is helpful to understand the issues and how to apply our idea. Is this possible? So I'll open it up to Craig in a moment, but I will say I would encourage you to look at the program guide for full details. There's in the appendix section a portion of some technical constraints or details to be aware of. Um, and I would look at that first and foremost right there. Craig, any other insights on that?
Um, as we kind of dig into the proposals, I encourage you to still submit your challenge proposal. And as we dig in through the challenge proposals, we'll definitely have to get into those more details, especially Magna's such a large company. Um, and there's so many different divisions. I really encourage you to maybe have a bit of more of a broad solution, and then we can tailor it to each division. So
Yeah, that's great. And for all interested innovators and potential applicants, as Craig has mentioned, think more of a broad-based solution that you're proposing right there. There's a range of certain numbers that have been provided in the program guide, but really looking for that availability of flexibility in its design and application as a great application. So thank you, Masood, for that question. We have another question. Um, is Magna willing to help fund the winning pilot product to ensure the technology seamlessly integrates with their facility? And secondly, does Magna require any form of exclusivity to the final solution? So again, I'll turn this over to Craig.
as far as exclusivity, no. We're kind of open to, I mean, any solution that's going to have a technology readiness of 7 is going to be something that's not very exclusive to Magna anyway. But and sorry, what was the first part of that question, Joseph?
Yeah, the first part of the question is about funding or support for the winning pilot.
Okay.
So we'd mentioned at the first that it's the opportunity to work and to get into discussion with the Magna team, first and foremost. And Craig, you can provide a little bit more
Yeah,
detail
for
on that
sure. Yep.
relationship.
Um, we that's why we outline the cost, the simple payback of 2 to 3 years. We will be looking at funding an activity. It'll depend really on the climate that happens, or that's currently happening when the pilot is awarded, or I guess it's not awarded, but when the winning solution is identified. Um, we will be also looking at trying to get incentives and stuff through Save on Energy, or through our natural gas service provider, which for my location is Enbridge. But we'll be digging into those details a little bit further as as we go through the winning challenge, or when we look at piloting a project.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like once that relationship is established, there's plenty of opportunities in ways to look at and maybe approach other sources of funding or other assistance that could help push the pilot demonstration along. We have another question now. Simple question here on which is the operating business unit of Magna that will be mostly responsible for this pilot process.
It'll be division specific. Um, so I'm at Press Train Industries in St. Thomas, Ontario. Um, the other division that's really kind of leading this challenge is Mototech in Milton, Ontario. And we'll be doing that through our own budgets at the division level. Speaking for myself, Magna at this location has its own sustainability world-class manufacturing budget that we'll be using.
Perfect, thank you. We have a question from Vimal. Is it possible to get some more details about the problem definition, pilot system size, facility size, equipment currently installed, floor plans, design plans, expected budget? As we mentioned earlier in this webinar, that goal of this the goal of this innovation challenge is to identify solutions that could be adaptable to multiple different facilities. So there will not be specific floor plan designs, expected budget, etc. at this stage. At this initial application stage, we're looking for um, more open style solutions that can respond to a range which have been indicated in the program guide. And there's an opportunity to ask additional questions and get some, say, refinement for applicants that are successful in the initial application and move on to the pitch stage. Craig, do you have anything to add to that?
No, exactly what you're saying, Joseph. Basically, we're looking for a more broad solution that we can evaluate at this point in time, and then upon um, those solutions, then we'll be kind of filtering them in, and then looking at more detailed analysis.
Fantastic. Our next question from Mark is, how does Magna measure costs and success related to internal ROI for facility charges?
That'll be really specific to the division. Myself personally, I use a standard M&V approach. If it's a large scale solution, probably use a linear regression model to measure.
And Mark also had a follow-up question is, will more than one company be able to pitch? And the answer is yes. So we'll invite several companies based on their initial application to then pitch um, to the session that we've identified. So yes, multiple companies will be able to pitch. Um, this next question, if we have additional questions regarding our solutions eligibility, can we reach out or to confirm or reject eligibility prior to the final submission? So I encourage you to look through the program guide. There's a detailed list of eligibility that should be able to answer questions. There's also an FAQ page that is maintained on the challenge website with additional information. If there's still some uncertainty about other questions or comments or eligibility concerns, we encourage you to put those questions forward to the email that you see on your screen, challenges@foresightcac.com, and hopefully we'll be able to give a bit more context to answer any outstanding questions that you might have. Tell us about the amount of funding available and structure, milestone-based timeline, etc. So as mentioned before, um, the opportunity here is to enter and get a relationship and exposure to the Magna team with that potential to pilot in facility in Ontario, and then depending on how things go, see what the scalability is in being introduced to the global network. So at this time, there is not specific funding attached to and the successful winner, but there's opportunities in the future to go out and seek other available funding that would help support a successful pilot demonstration here. Um,
With that being said too, Joseph, I just wanted to expand on the fact that Magna does do a lot of benchmarking between divisions, um, especially in Ontario. Um, these solutions that make it kind of the final stage will get quite a bit of attention on through Magna. And even if the there's a budgetary restriction now, it doesn't necessarily mean that will always be the case.
that's a great point. This next question again, assuming Magna has engaged with many energy management firms who submitted plans, has anything been done so far or other reasonings that things were rejected? Um, so to answer the question here, so this is an innovation challenge that's trying to go beyond the typical source of providers, looking beyond that list right there. So encouraging innovative solutions to achieve um, is reduction in facility scope 1 emissions. Craig can speak a little bit more to the reasoning and like motivation that Magna is using to use this method right here versus what has been done already in the past up until this point.
Yeah, Magna does have ambitious science-based targets through our roadmap, and we're actively achieving those goals. Year over year, we're doing very well and have been successful in reducing our scope 1 and our energy reduction targets. We're really looking at trying to find the next level of advancement in those technologies that'll help us be successful now and in the future. So that's really where the innovation part comes in, really looking for solutions that we haven't thought of, um, that we could pilot and ultimately use to be successful in the future.
Fantastic. And what level of, the question is, what amount of reduction in emissions relating to heating is considered meaningful? And I would answer firstly that, actually, I'll pass this on to Craig for what they're looking for in terms of um, a meaningful emission reduction.
Yeah, for sure. I've been part of projects here that have reduced our emissions by about 50%. So um, very large scale projects that are happening right now. I'm not expecting us to find another project that does quite that extreme, but we do have very ambitious targets in the future, um, and we will need technology to hit those targets. So even if we're in the 5 to 10% range, um, that would be a good target.
Lastly, so are ISO or Enbridge supported projects for funding considered an asset if there's already having? So I think the question is if there are projects that already have a level of support, is that um, beneficial to the project? And Craig, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, I mean it'll depend. I I seem to work fairly closely with um, our utility providers, both Enbridge here for myself, and then also the IESO. Um, not not out of the realm. I know there's very good programs, and I've been a part of those programs in the past. So um, I'm not going to discount it, but it's a yeah, it's a I guess a fairly vague amount of projects that could fit into that bucket. But yeah, I'm not opposed to it.
And lastly, we have another question that is asking about the preferences, whether for hardware over software or vice versa. And I'd like to just firstly say that this innovation challenge is technology agnostic in the sense that looking for all different types of solutions as long as there is the business case for why this potential solution could be implemented and the benefits associated with it. I would encourage you to put that application forward. Craig, do you have anything to add?
No, just yeah, we're looking for innovation, whether that comes from a software or hardware solution. It's really um, it's an interesting question too because it'll really matter in the details, especially for software-based solutions. Working with um, our our current, I guess, programs and toolkit that we have, it'll really come down to whether you can integrate that well or not. So yeah, I'm open to either solution.
And we have a last question in here. How is emission reduction being converted to business use case? Simply put, what's the cost of carbon for Magna? I think at the beginning of this challenge, we highlighted some of the ambitious targets that Magna has in terms of reducing their emissions and are committed to those targets and those measures. So technologies that aid them and help advance that objective are highly sought after. Anything to add on that?
No. Most of our goals are percentage-based goals upon specific baselines. So um, that's kind of how the technology will be measured.
Awesome. I'll give a final moment if there's anyone with any outstanding questions that they'd like to enter into the chat. Thank you to all the participants who've asked questions so far. I think your question benefits everyone who probably has similar related questions. So thank you for putting those forward. Give it another moment here. Otherwise, oh, the solution further reduces carbon footprint, but not necessarily from heating system will be still seen as a viable proposal. I would say yes.
Yeah, I would err on the side of if you think you have a good idea, I would submit an application.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for your questions right there. I'll reiterate again. There's more information on our challenge website, foresightcac.com. Innovation challenges. You can find the details for this challenge, including where to apply, program guide, and if there's any outstanding questions that are not answered through this webinar or through the program guide or FAQs, then I would encourage you to use the email you see on your screen, challenges@foresightcac.com. And with that, I would just like to say thank you for attending today's webinar and give a little bit of time back in your calendars here and encourage to seeing your solutions. We look forward to seeing those come in. Again, the deadline is March 26th.
Thanks, everyone.